anything, but 100 newsletters, like amazing. So Pauleanna, huge congratulations to you. Just a few housekeeping rules, ladies. We want to engage. We want this to be engaging. We are here to celebrate Pauleanna and her success over the past 100 newsletters. We want you guys to take screenshots, take down some quotables, some tweetables, and use the hashtag cool combos so Pauleanna can go back later on and kind of see what you guys are posting. Hashtag cool combos, okay? Somebody can drop that in the chat. That'd be wonderful. And share this conversation with your friends. Send this to your girlfriend that needs to be here that she didn't make it yet. Tell her, girl, it started. Get on, all right? And we're definitely going to leave some room at the end for some Q&A. And so are we all clear on that? Clear? Thumbs up? Cool. Perfect. Cool combos. Let's get started. So I'm Carlette Hewitt. I am an event producer specializing in hybrid virtual events, offline events. I am fully immersed in the event world. And so I love the fact that Pauleanna invited me to be here with her today. I'm so honored. And yeah, looking forward to talking with you ladies this afternoon. So Pauleanna, tell us a little bit about yourself for those who are in the back. They don't necessarily know who you are and what you do.
Yeah, for sure. For those of you who may not be aware, my name is Pauleanna Reid. I am a journalist and celebrity ghostwriter. I own a celebrity ghostwriting agency called The Writer's Block, but I'm widely known for writing across different lanes. When I am working with my team, which is an all women of color team of content ninjas, we help the leaders and doers who are shaping the future. We help them turn their personal stories into brand assets. The reason why we're here is because we are celebrating consistency. And it's not so much about the newsletter as it is about being consistent about at the very least one thing in your life, right? We are all very consistent with getting our hair and nails done. We're very consistent with, some of us are very consistent with self-care, linking up with our girlfriends, sending memes in the group chat. But are we consistent with the things that matter the most? That's why we're here.
Love it. So really quickly, just to kick things off, who here struggles with consistency? Can we just be honest really quick? Like this is our space. It's a safe space. Who struggles with consistency? Okay, because if I'm not struggling in one area, I'm struggling in another area of consistency. We all struggle in the area of consistency. So I think this conversation will be really amazing and really well-rounded. So Pauleanna, the theme of your newsletter is cool shit to talk about at home or in the office. How in the world did you come up with that name?
So here's the thing. For years, I struggled with what I wanted to do with my newsletter, who I wanted to talk to, what I wanted to do, and it just ended up being a mess. So then I took a big pause and I decided to not send anything to my audience unless I was really sure that I could stand behind it and I felt really, really good about it. So back in 2000, I would say 17, I was at the Forbes office and we had a roundtable discussion with some of the writers, some of the readers, and some of the editors as well. Okay. And at the time, we were talking about the hottest topic, which was Bill Cosby. It was one of the hot topics we were discussing. And I remember replaying a conversation in my head around whether or not I wanted to contribute to the conversation. I knew every fact there was to know about the case at the time. I had previous experience with sexual assault, right, and sexual abuse. I had the things to say, but I had a lot of doubt. So like Pauleanna in true fashion, I did speak up. I raised my hand. I contributed to the conversation. And it was one of the factors that actually opened the door so that I could then be a senior writer at Forbes. The reason why I'm telling this story is because Alex Wolf, one of my peers, she said, you cannot be interesting if you're not interested. Okay? Do you guys understand what that means? You cannot be interesting if you're not interested. I was able to contribute to that conversation simply because I was equipped with the knowledge that I needed in order to really grab the attention of those who are in the circle. And so I thought about that. That really stayed with me because I raised my hand, because I spoke up, because I was equipped, I was able to not only get one of the positions that would shift my career, right? But it allowed me to forge new relationships because people were very interested in what I had to say. So the newsletter really was birthed by the idea of I wanted to equip my peers, so other millennials, with what they needed to know, because I always have my ear to the ground. I stay tapped in so that they could confidently contribute to meaningful conversations and bring cool shit to the table, right? Because when you are an interesting person, when you have charisma, clever wit, when you're able to contribute something, when you have an opinion, that's when you really shine, right? And you just don't know who's watching, what power they hold. So that's where it came from.
I freaking love that. I love that takeaway. You can't be interesting if you are not interested. Ladies, are you interested? Like, think about that.
Yeah, that's the thing. I get a lot of questions around how to cultivate valuable relationships, how to network, how do you get into the rooms with important people? And in New Girl on the Block, which is my mentorship program, I keep it very, very real with them. Sometimes people are not fucking with you because you're boring.
Right.
It has nothing to do with like how pretty you are, how smart you are. You're just not a vibe, right? Wow. When people walk into your personal space, they should leave better than when they entered. And some of you are dimming your light. Some of you are you don't have an opinion on anything that's going on in the world, where there's literally so many issues that's happening right now. You're not picking up a book or a newspaper. You're not a part of clubs or associations. You don't have hobbies. Like, there's something to be said about, and this is what can't be taught in school, right? Having charisma, like, how you, like, once you attain the knowledge, how you deliver it, right? Like, are you energetic, or are you just like, there are some people that I talk to, some women I've encountered, and their energy is constantly like this, right? There's no, like, Carlette, whenever I talk to you, we are always vibing, dancing, like the energy is high, our frequency is high, and you have very infectious energy. People want to be around you. Yeah, so that's another thing that's really, really important. You really want to check yourself, and you really want to ask yourself, could I be doing more? Right?
Gosh, that's so good. And that's so true. It is something that you can't teach. It's something that you cannot teach. It's literally one of those things. Either you have it or you don't, or you make your coffee stronger so you get it. Like, literally, that's what it is. It's a vibe. So I'm very interested in understanding. You say, you keep your ear to the ground. What is the hardest part about keeping up with consistency? Because I would imagine you are contributing to so many different conversations, right? How do you keep up with consistency?
Right. So, to be honest, how do I keep up with the consistency? I feel like that's a muscle that has to be worked, right? That's a muscle that you strengthen over time. Like I said before, when we were introducing each other, a lot of people stay consistent with their hair, their nails, their makeup appointments, their eyebrows. Those are things that are very important to some of us, right? Like, you will be consistent with things that are important to you. I just, like, to me, like, when I get that question, how do you stay consistent? It's like, if something's really important to you, right? Like your nigga, the guy you're dating, right? Like, if something's really important to you, you're going to chase after it. You're going to devote your time to it, right? Like, I'm definitely guilty of contributing time to things that honestly, in the long run, in the bigger picture, didn't even matter. I think it's a matter of just like reevaluating your priorities. And also too, like, just, you have to have a set of non-negotiables.
Yes.
Right? I think every woman should have two things: a mentor and a set of non-negotiables. And what's happening is too many of us are bending those principles.
Ladies, first of all, happy Monday. Is it Monday? Happy Tuesday? What day is it?
Monday.
Happy Monday, you guys, because many of us are going back to the workplace tomorrow. And so this is a perfect conversation as you guys are preparing, winding down your evening and getting ready to go back into your workplace tomorrow. Or if you're an entrepreneur, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Consistent? Yeah, go ahead.
One thing I want to say too about consistency is, like, a great brand makes a promise and delivers on that promise. Right? So, like, consistency, for me, I'm staying consistent because I have made a promise to the recipient of these newsletters, right? For me, consistency is showing up for my mentees because I promised them that I would be there for them no matter what, right? Consistency is it's just like you have to find your reason. You know what I mean? Like you just have to find your reason why. Like it's like if you want to be a woman of your word, then do just that. I think like we don't talk enough about our moral compass, about having integrity, right? It's like if you say you're going to do something, then do it. Right. And I think not enough people are practicing discipline in different areas of their life. Like, for instance, personal preference. I've never tasted alcohol in my life. Right. That's just a personal preference. I don't mess with it. Like, I need my mind to be clear 365 days a year. That's just not my thing. And like, I do that not to show off. I do it because I think that it's really important to choose an area of your life and really devote yourself to being disciplined in it. Right. I do it to prove something to myself.
So good. I mean, I'm over here reevaluating my whole life, right? I'm over here like, wait, I got to get myself together. But the margaritas are just so good. That one won't work for me. That one won't work for me. But how do you, how do you keep consistent when you don't see the expected result, right? Like when you're constantly working on something, or you're pitching to a brand, or you're pitching to clients, etc. You're pitching on behalf of clients, and you don't see the result at the end. How do you continue, like keep at it? What motivates you to do that?
Okay, so one thing that you guys have always heard me saying, like a lot of my videos and speaking engagements, is that I don't think people stick to anything long enough to master it. Right? Like I have girlfriends who are 1 week they're a babysitter, the next week they're a horseback rider, the next week they're an astronaut, the next week they're a photographer, the next week they're a hairstylist. And I'm just like, if you cannot, let me give you some perspective. I've been a writer for 10 years. Okay. Like whether it took me 10 minutes, 10 weeks, 10 days, 10 months, 10 years, 100 years, like I was going to stay the course until I hit my goals. That's how much I'm ridiculously obsessed with my craft. But when you keep flip-flopping, right? When you keep flip-flopping, when you give 20% of your energy to 5 different business ideas, then of course you're not going to be consistent. Right? I think the other thing to keep in mind is everybody starts at zero. You feel me? Like every great artist, executive, founder, entertainer was once an amateur. If you go to a website, I wrote it down because I wanted to bring it up. If you go to web.archive.org, you can look up any website and you can see the life cycle of that website. You can type in Pauleanna Reid and you can see what my website looked like in 2011, 2012. I ask you to, I think this is a really great exercise because then you can see the evolution of certain things, right? You can see the evolution, you can see where something started. I am obsessed with reading autobiographies and like binge watching documentaries. I really, really love to see how something has evolved. And I think it's really important to allow your dreams and ideas to evolve. And I think it's really important to do things not for the applause, right? Like if nobody likes your photo, double tap that shit yourself. You feel me? Like it's not like, it's just, I don't know. Like when you don't see results, I mean, results are relative. Like when it comes to the newsletter, the results that Vanessa and I, Vanessa helps me with the newsletter, the results that we want is just to build community. That's it. Me and Vanessa have and this is another reason we started the newsletter. We have a group chat. It's really just me and her. And we dump links. We dump links and we dump videos and all kinds of shit because we're just so naturally curious. And we just wanted to build a community of other curious millennials who had questions, who questioned things that they were taught, right? And so someone had asked a question when y'all were RSVPing, and you asked about selling. You asked about to me, it's just like, why can't we just do something sometimes out of the kindness of our hearts? Because we just want to do something with nothing in return. I don't have a product to sell you, nor do I want to sell you anything. I make my money in so many other ways: consulting, public speaking, guest lecturing at colleges and universities, through paid advisory boards. I have an agency. right? This newsletter, some things are okay with just being a passion. They don't always have to be tied to a profit. They don't always have to be tied to a funnel. They don't always have to be tied to all these different things. Like just sometimes just serve, like be a servant leader. You know what I mean? Just because what's going to happen is, and Marie Forleo, she always says that generosity is the best business strategy. What's going to happen is just naturally, right? And I'm going to hop over to Kevin Kelly's theory, the 1,000 true fans theory, right? He says you only need 1,000 true fans to make a living from your art. What's going to happen is just naturally, people are going to develop that loyalty to you because you fulfilled your promise. And in return, they're going to be emotionally connected to the work that you do. And I've had several examples, you know, people will then advocate for you when you're not in the room. They'll tell their auntie, their mommy, their boss, their teacher, they'll spread the word. They'll be the evangelists, the apostles, right? And so if you look at the 1,000 true fans theory, you know that Kevin Kelly, he says that, you know, you need to develop super fans, right? Super fans are the individuals who are going to drive 300 miles to see you in concert. Super fans are the individuals who are going to buy your ebook, your paperback, your hardcover, and your audio, right? You know what I mean? Like, so I think we're too money hungry. And I understand you need money to pay the bills. We'll get into that. But I also feel like if you take the time to actually cultivate a community and you serve them from a heart-centered place, that is going to have a ripple effect and you won't have to worry about money.
Can I just add on that, Pete? So I come from a background of B2B.
Introduce yourself. This is Vanessa. She helps me with the content for the newsletter.
I do. And I'm a digital marketer by my career. I'm an entrepreneur now. I co-founded a corporate gifting business, but digital marketing will always be my jam. And I did marketing consulting for a long time. And I did newsletters for companies with 30,000 subscribers. I did emails for companies with 1 million subscribers. And the general rule that they always followed was 80-20 in like resources versus selling something. And even that 20% where they were selling something was like a CTA at the bottom saying, by the way, talk to us if you want to, but it was never like, by the way, this is on sale, for example. So even in the context of where like sales are important, it's like very much a long-term game when it comes to newsletters. It's like, know that you're doing it. Like Pauleanna said, you're building trust over time so that when you have something to sell, you can like present that offer very genuinely and people will receive it that way as well.
Absolutely. Right. We can even reference Gary Vee's jab, 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 right hook. And also too, it's really important that people understand that this is a game of grit and staying power. Because the people who started with you will not finish with you, right? And if you are consistent, you'll realize that people will slowly disqualify themselves.
Ladies, I mean, take a deep breath because like
I'm hype about this shit. Like I'm so excited. I love talking about it.
I'm over
here ask really good questions.
Listen, the two things that stuck out to me, and ladies and that are in the chat, please don't forget to use the hashtag cool combos because this is a really cool combo and a necessary conversation to have on a Monday night, right? But two things that you said, Pauleanna, that stuck out to me is literally form the relationship, right? Form the relationship with your followers, your relationships with people. Just be genuine, serve first, and then they will, they'll eventually buy from you. That's really, really important. And then the second thing that you said was consistency. I mean, there's literally nothing. I don't even know. I'm a little lost.
Just commit.
Because you have to commit to what you're doing. So ladies in the chat, if you resonate with any of that, please drop a CC for me. I need a CC, right? It's a cool combo and it's a consistent conversation. So drop the CC in the chat. Make sure you guys are taking screenshots, screen record my girl, show her some love on socials and let the people know what they're missing because they definitely should have been here so that you guys are getting these gems as well. All right, perfect. So let's move along. Vanessa, great point. I mean, for those of you that have newsletters, listen to what Vanessa just said. That was a huge tidbit that she just shared with you guys, right? Make sure that you are leading with resources, provide resources, serve, jab, 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 right hook, ask for the sale later. All right, perfect. All right, so Pauleanna, I'm sure you get like a number of articles across your desk every day. How do you decide like what is newsworthy for your readers? What do you decide? How do you decide what to include in your newsletters between the two of you, Vanessa and Pauleanna?
Yeah, I really think that it's so important to keep your ear to the ground and just listen. A lot of people are doing this, right? Everyone's an expert. Everyone's a thought leader. Everyone knows their shit. It's like, yo, just shut up for a second and just listen to what the people have to say. Read comments, right? Engage with your followers in your comments. Study people who text you, who call you, who DM you, who email you. Just listen. The data is right in front of you, right? So Vanessa and I, like I said, we drop a lot of links, and every weekend we'll go through all of the stuff we collected. But I think if you just listen, like, you'll know what the people want. And so we try to curate content that answers the most pressing questions in our DMs and in our emails.
And I also look at the content mix, like what kind of content is being put in there.
Yeah.
So Pauleanna and I are reading all kinds of stuff throughout the week, but I kind of think like, okay, what's something that's like going to help drive business or help the person who's looking to level up in their job, or what's something that's going on in the space of social justice. Like I kind of try to fill buckets, and sometimes, there's like two different things for one category, but I kind of try to keep it diverse in that way.
Love it. So when you say you try to fill two buckets, like what does that research process look like? You're taking in so much content throughout the week, but then how do you narrow it down? Like, okay, these are the top 10. Like, what does that process look like?
So there's a lot of articles flying around, and like oftentimes, you can kind of pinpoint what the top news is of the week, like broadly, like what was trending on Twitter the longest, for example. And then what I do often is go and look at which article kind of emerged as the most either qualified or most authoritative on that topic. And I choose that, or I choose like what's the most contrarian, because that's often an interesting perspective as well. And that's kind of how we choose it. And then Pauleanna gives the yes or no.
Exactly. Yeah, but I want to say too, like, Vanessa is a very integral part of this process. Like, don't feel like you have to do things alone. I know people see 100 and they see newsletter and they think, I can't do that. Like, get a girl. Vanessa's very passionate about research and data. She's very passionate about analytics. She's very passionate about digital marketing. Like, tap a girlfriend, ask a girlfriend, raise your hand. Like, you don't have to do shit by yourself. Like, I have a very packed schedule. And so Vanessa helps alleviate some of my stress. And it's actually really fun and interesting to do this together. Me and Vanessa worked on various projects over the years. We've become great friends and sisters. So don't feel like you have to climb the mountain by yourself.
Love it.
Another just like tip for consistency, and newsletters can feel overwhelming, at least to me. If you guys have MailChimp already or whatever you're sending out emails on, look up befree.io. I'll put it in the chat in a second. That's like the easiest drag and drop email builder on the planet. So you can easily build templates. I know MailChimp has some too, but they're kind of like stock. You can get really custom with Bee and just like sync it over to your MailChimp or whatever you're using.
Also, last thing before Carlette, I choose to use MailChimp. It's just really easy. I have different goals than many of you may have in terms of my newsletter, but there are so many other platforms to explore. Do not limit yourself to MailChimp. Actually, there are a few platforms that are even better than MailChimp. I do have a list somewhere in my email, so I'm happy to send that over if anyone is inquiring. But yeah, like I said, do the research and really like understand what platform is best for you.
This is like gold. This is gold, right? Who knew that we needed this? We need this. So I hope you guys are taking notes. I hope you ladies are taking notes. They're providing literally value upon value upon value and resources, right? So thank you so much, Pauleanna and Vanessa, for sure. Question for the both of you, actually. How have you, can you share some tips on how you developed your voice over the years, right? Pauleanna, we know you got a strong voice in the marketplace, right? We know on every topic. It doesn't matter what it is. It doesn't matter the room. I've been in rooms with you, both virtually and physically.
I'm going to shape the room. Always.
You own the space. So give us some tips, right? How do you shape the room?
Yeah, absolutely. How do you develop your voice over time is the question, right? So I think it's really important just to be patient with yourself, right? Because it's a process to even get to know yourself and what's important to you, what you stand on. So your morals, your values, your belief system, what you're fighting for, what conversations you want to contribute to. So like that is a process. When I first started my blog in 2010, 2011, I didn't know what the hell, I didn't know my direction, right? But I wasn't going to allow paralysis to just, stop my steps either. So for me, like, I think you should just get the ball rolling over time. What is really great about platforms like, let's say Twitter or your blog, if you, dive into the blog comments, getting feedback over time is also really great, right? And just, again, I'm going to say this consistently, it's a muscle that you have to exercise. So if you ask me, how can I find my voice? And you're not on Twitter, you're not blogging consistently, or you're not journaling or free writing, how do you expect to find your voice if you're not even taking the steps to do so, right? So like on my whiteboard in my office, I have 2 quotes: small things move the needle and great things are simple, right? So finding your voice doesn't have to mean all these big words and you have a wide vocabulary and you're like the most brilliant woman in the room. Finding your voice is simply just staying true to who you are and not allowing yourself to waver from your North Star for anyone or anything, right? And sometimes that means defying your parents, your loved ones. Sometimes that means standing up for yourself when people come to you with some bullshit. Sometimes that means that you may be in positions where you might lose the client or lose your job, but as long as you stay true to you, everything will work itself out.
Mm-hmm.
Gosh, so important. Vanessa, what about you? How do you find your voice? How did you find your writing voice, comfortability?
Oh, so I've always been I've been a career marketer, like I said. So my job has always been to be the voice of a company or an executive or somebody else. So I started working with Pauleanna originally because I was like, who am I as a person? I have no idea. But I can speak a lot to building a voice for a company for sure. And to be honest, it's very similar. It's like repetition, figuring out what doesn't work for you and kind of finding the through lines in your content over time is like what feels the most natural, what gets the best responses, and what's the best representation of that brand. And for me, often I do exercises when I was doing consulting with clients of what is it's as simple as what is the tone that you're going for? Are you really friendly? Are you authoritative? Are you super technical? And if so, are you trying to sound really smart, or are you trying to make it more accessible to people? Having those conversations, whether it's with yourself or whoever you're writing for, are really important to kind of get the ball rolling. And then again, it's trial and error. Eventually, the more you do it, the more it'll become apparent what isn't your voice. Mm-hmm. And I think that's where it gets really easy, it's really just elimination. That didn't feel right, or that didn't come naturally, or it didn't read well. And so yeah, that's how I do it. I kind of just mess up until it's okay.
And allow your voice to evolve too, right?
Yes,
you are a human being, you're a woman who's going through so many different things. There's so many different sides of us. Just allow that shit to evolve naturally and allow your audience to build with you. I had someone who reposted my flyer today, and she said, I've been listening to Pauleanna since 2017. Some people have been listening to me or following my content since 2012, and they've seen me grow up. You know what I mean? So I think it's really important to allow your audience, they don't want the end result. I mean, I think it's very important to put numbers on the scoreboard, but what I mean is allow them to evolve with you, right? Your interests are going to change, your hobbies are going to change, your titles are going to change. You're going to go through ebbs and flows. You may be broke, you may be rich, you may be you're going to go those are all stories to tell. And that's what makes up your brand personality and your brand identity, right? The things that are important to you.
I freaking love all of that. Gosh, is this recorded? This is so good. This is so good. Something that you said that was gold, right? Mm-hmm. Courage is a muscle. Courage is a muscle.
It's a muscle.
Speaking up when you're quivering. Listen, oh gosh, I remember my career, right? Just my voice would shake, but I would still say what I had to say. Okay. Yes. Speaking up for yourself. I love that. Ladies, are you getting this? Is this not a cool conversation. Okay. Hashtag cool conversations. That is so amazing. Pauleanna, what was your mindset around meeting new people who are at the level that you would like to be, right? I'm sure there was once a time when you were like, wow, I would love to talk to that person. I would love to have 5 minutes with that person. And now you sit amongst these people, right? So what was that process like? What was your mindset around meeting them?
I actually made notes on this because I didn't want to forget a single thing. So in short, the short answer, before I get to the long answer, the short answer is you need to reduce stress and add value. That is the short answer, period. Like, I don't really need to say more than that, but I will. But reduce stress and add value, right? The reason why I say this is because people are busy and they just don't got time for games. And a lot of y'all are playing games, right? Don't take that personal, but my observation, because I mentor 1 million people and I engage with millennials on a consistent basis, my biggest concern is around problem solving skills and critical thinking skills. I'm very concerned. Like, you remember back in the day, Carlette, I don't know if some of these kids, right? I don't know if anybody else remembers, but back in the day when we had math class and we had to put pen to paper and work out long division, right? I don't even know if they do. They have calculators now. Hey, Phoebe, they have calculator, right? So it's like when someone comes to me or a mentee comes to me, right? I always tell them put pen to paper and work that shit out like a math equation. What seems like the most logical step that makes sense? You feel me? And like when I speak to a woman and her default setting is I don't know, that is very concerning because you may not be ready for this shit. If you know what I mean, like that cannot be your default setting, right? One of the mantras that I say repeatedly every single day is that I trust myself to figure it out. That's it. I trust myself to figure it out. So there's a few things I want to point out, right? When it comes to networking with high performing people, right? You want to ask, well, let me say this. I ask myself, right? Take it or leave it. I always ask myself, am I the type of woman world-class performers would actually want to fuck with? Sit with that question, right? And no shade to anyone, right? But like there's levels to this, right? And so people are willing to help you on any level, but there's a lot of prerequisite work that needs to be done. You feel me? Many of my girlfriends today, Emily De La Cruz, Maya Elias, Maddie James, Courtney Saunders, the who's who, Miss Diddy, the who's Ingrid Best, the who's who of Black women, Black girl magic, right? A lot of my friends today, my peers, I was a fangirl at one point, right? I was like, oh my God, like I wish that I could rub shoulders. But you know what I did? Instead of begging them to be my friend, instead of forcing a relationship, I worked on myself.
That's right.
I worked on developing habits. I worked on increasing my market value, which I will break down in a second, right? I worked on perfecting my skill set so that I would exude the energy, the vibration, the frequency, so that I would attract the opportunities that would bring us together. After a while, we ended up sitting on the same stages. I was invited into the same rooms and sitting next to these individuals who I was once a fangirl of. You feel me? There's a prerequisite to mentorship. There's a prerequisite to developing relationships, right? And we spoke about many of those earlier. So what I want to say about market value. So Amanda Seals, I'm going to give her all the credit for teaching me this for a few years now. There's a difference between your self-worth and your market value, right? Self-worth. We look in the mirror, hype ourselves up. You know what I mean? Like we're the bomb, we're the shit, we're feeling really good. But your market value is something that's incredibly important. Your voice can't be the only cosign that you're dope. Market value says that you've earned the respect of your industry peers. Your market value says that you have, I wouldn't say you've reached expert status, but you've leveraged your social media as your portfolio and people are aware of the projects that you're working on. Market value is, your name is in conversations and in rooms that you haven't even entered yet, right? If someone were to think of your industry, they think you're in the top 5. That's market value. And so everything that you do, when we say small things move the needle, great things are simple, everything you do should be increasing your market value. There is research on this shit. There is research that says that the person who is confident right? The person who raises their hands will get the opportunities and the titles and the salary breaks over the person who just has their head down and do the work. When you have your head down and do the work, there's pros and cons to that. But when you have your head down and do the work, honey, you don't know what's happening in your industry. You can't stay tapped in. You are not a participant. You're not playing in traffic. You don't know the players on the board. You don't know the function of each player, right? And so you don't know how to make your next move. You feel me? Like there's strategic play. Like and this is why I do a lot of guest lectures in colleges and universities, because like there's just certain shit that you can't learn in the classroom. And I really love going and shaking things up. But like, there's just like, this requires strategy. This is a game of chess. Some people are playing checkers and Connect Four. Like you really have to understand that this is a game and you have to play to win. You feel me? The other thing I wanted to say is playing in traffic, right? So how do you expect to build relationships or get high-end clients, celebrities, athletes, politicians, etc., right? Your expectations cannot exceed your effort, right? When I say play in traffic, and the person who I can credit this to is Sally Krawcheck of Elvest. She says play in traffic. Playing in traffic looks like joining clubs and private Facebook groups, and you're, engaging in your alumni association. So a lot of people are on Clubhouse, but I'm probably one of the only people that actually is on Lunch Club, which is so amazing. Anyone who I mentor that's on this call, about Lunch Club. And so Lunch Club is pretty much, probably more so for introverts than anything, right? Like you're able to connect. So let me back up. Lunch Club uses AI technology to match you with a professional lunch date. And when you give your availability, your calendar to the website, they will then do the introduction, and they will put the lunch date in your calendar. It's very easy. You literally only have to set up a profile, give your availability every week, connect with someone. And so as a result, I'll give you an example. As a result of one of my meetings on Lunch Club, right, I was talking to, we'll call him John. I was talking to John, and it just so happens that his father was the former speechwriter for Mario Cuomo, who's the former governor of New York. Had I not played in traffic, I would not have a new mentor who was once a fantastic, he's now 70 and he's retired, and he has all the stories for me. He's best friends with one of the only Black presidential speechwriters in our history, right? So like, had I not played in traffic, I would not have crossed paths. Another thing I want to say is we don't ask enough, right? So like, we're not asking for the opportunity. We're not asking for the internship. We're not asking for the raise, right? So like, people who are in authority positions, they have power. And you have to prove to them why they should use their power on you, right? And sometimes you are in a position where you've paid your dues, right? I am someone who I've interned, I've worked for, I've done special projects, I've freelanced for every single one of my mentors. And at a certain point, you've paid your dues. So girl, ask the question, what do you want? They're not going to just volunteer it for you, right? B. Arthur. She is incredible. We originally met on Shark. Oh, let me mention one more thing about playing in traffic. Why do you think so many people have started podcasts? Why do you think bloggers back in the day when I started my blog 2011, one of the primary reasons I started my blog was so I could play in traffic. I've been practicing this for a very long time. When you are able to get someone on the phone with you and you create an experience that they can never forget, you've now planted a seed that you can grow, you can water, you can nurture, you can add sunlight, and you can strengthen that bond, whether it's a mentor, a big sister, a friend, etc. And that's how you develop mentorships and sponsorships and sister connections. B. Arthur, not the actress on Golden Girls. This is a fine Black woman. I saw her on Shark Tank several years ago, probably like 2014. I reached out to her, okay? And I featured her on my website. Long story short, over the time, I freelanced for her, did special projects, et cetera, et cetera. Once I paid my dues, at a certain point, you got to check yourself. I picked up the phone and I asked her, how can I forge a relationship with Forbes? I'd really like to work for the platform. Not work, right for the platform. She was like, great. Long story short, she was a huge factor in why I'm now a senior contributor at Forbes. That's another story in itself. But at some point, you have to raise your hand and just ask the question when you get in the rooms of people. I could go on, but I will. Oh, the final thing I want to say, sorry, but because this is just really important, because you have a lot of people building businesses with the desire to attract high-end clients and don't know how to act, right? You have a lot of people who desire world-class performers as mentors, don't know how to act. You know what I mean? And if the formula is not that hard. The other thing I want to say is be equipped and be armed with your elevator pitch, right? You don't know who's watching. You don't know what power they hold. You should not be umming and ahhing. You should be very clear on what your life assignment is. There are jobs and there are life assignments. There's a difference, right? And the delivery is very important. Remember, we talked about some people won't fuck with you because you're boring. Be very confident, charismatic, come with energy to the conversation. A lot of my mentors, a lot of my high-end clients, they see themselves in me. You feel me? Right? So it's really important to just be aware. And the last thing I'll say is develop really good habits and really good traits. This is what I mean by that. There are several people in my orbit who have hired me, not because I'm the smartest, not because I'm the prettiest, none of that shit. It's literally because they saw habits that left them with the impression that they would get a return on their investment. When I say investment, it's not money. Investment is time, energy, connections, right? Mentors want their ROI. ROI means like the best thank you that you can give anyone is to do the work and do it at a level of excellence. Don't make them look stupid, right? The other thing is I want to say, when I say develop good habits, remember I was saying critical thinking and problem solving is two of my biggest concerns with our generation. The third thing is our etiquette. The third thing is our character and our habits. And like, you know, what I mean by this is a few examples that I wrote down. So I was in a meeting with an executive at the NBA, and I had this pitch deck, and I was, you know, professional and all these things, right? And when I was finished my pitch, she was like, okay, that's, you know, really impressive, but tell me something that's not on your presentation. Tell me something about you that's not on your presentation. And I was taken back, right? I hadn't yet mastered the art of the pitch, but I was, you know, on my way there. And so the muscle that I exercised in that moment was vulnerability, right? I was able to share my character arc, my story arc with her outside of the services and the projects I could do for her, but I exercised vulnerability, right? That's a trait. Another example, I won't say her name, but an executive that is spearheading Be Good. Be Good is Beyonce's organization, nonprofit. And you know, she was extremely impressed with me because her team had asked me to do something, a very, very small assignment. And the way I organized my paperwork and the way I conducted my research, she was blown away. And now she's been a client for almost 2 years. I'll give you another example. Rakia Reynolds, she's the founder of Sky Blue Media, right? The trait that I have illustrated with her is to just be coachable, to listen, to shut up, right? Like there are certain things people are going to look for in you, and that's going to give them the indication that you are worth the investment. So just make sure that you are exemplifying and you're being the type of person that people in powerful positions, they can co-sign, because if they're co-signing you, that means they're putting their name on the line for you. And ain't nobody want to put their name on the line for you and ruin their reputation. So that's all I want to say. I think it's just important for everybody to tighten up, right? Like when I tell you across the board, anyone who has hired me or who has rubbed shoulders with me or who has mentored me, it's because like I'm prompt when I reply to their emails. I'm coachable. I listen. I don't talk over them. I go out of my way for them. If we're going to coffee, I'm paying for the coffee. Like I am solving problems. Just make sure you are exercising specific character traits that make them say, this is a woman that I want to invest in and I want to see her career through.
Y'all, first of all, I'm blown away. I've heard this story. I've heard the stories. I know the stories, But I really want to encourage those of you that your camera is on. I mean, this is a chill conversation. It's a cool conversation. But if your camera is on, I'm gonna need you to adjust your posture just a little bit more. I'm gonna need you to sit up, because there's no way you can leave this conversation the same. I mean, it just can't, right? And if you are, shame on you. But if you're a high performer and you're someone who aspires to achieve anything great in whatever it is that you're doing, whether professionally or in your entrepreneurship journey, I'm gonna need you to put your shoulders up, okay? Sit up straight, you know, like adjust your posture. You guys, you gotta, in Pauleanna's words, you gotta pop your shit a little bit, right? Because clearly, she just said so much. I mean,
it was a mouthful, and I really hope people take it to heart, because remember, small things make a difference. Great things are simple. You don't have to you don't necessarily have to be the smartest in the room. You just have to be the most willing. That's it. That's literally it. Be the most willing, be a problem solver. Don't stress people the fuck out. You know what I mean? Like, you should be their peace, right? But if I pick up the phone and call anyone in my Rolodex, anyone in my orbit, they're going to answer my call, because they know I'm not coming to them with no bullshit. I'm not coming to them with problems. I'm probably coming to them with an opportunity or a resource or solutions. Or honestly, sometimes some of the wealthiest people in my orbit, you'd be surprised, I have brought them to tears just by asking them, how are you? Because we also have to remember that they are still human. We also have to remember that, like, we shouldn't be intimidated by their titles. They've also been where we once were, right? So just by asking, how are you? I can't tell you how many clients or partners have responded to that text and simply said, nobody ever asked me that, right? So that's also something to remember. They're human.
100%. That is so good. You guys swallow. Make sure that goes down, right? Because that was just a mouthful, but so good. Pauleanna, what would be your advice for someone who has so many different business hats, right? Like, shifting gears a little bit, and they're like, I just can't figure this out. I want to do this. I want to do this. I want to do that. I don't know where I should start. What would be your advice for those that are, feeling stuck or have a fear of overthinking?
Choose the path that has least resistance. That's really what it boils down to, right? Choosing the path that has least resistance. I think that it's really important to not rush the process. Don't give 20% of your time to 6 different things. And also trust the timing of your life. I have ideas every single day, and they will keep flowing. It doesn't mean I need to launch all of them at once. There are ideas that I've sat on. There are ideas that I've pulled the trigger like immediately. You just have to, like, again, it's strategic. You know what I mean? Like, what's the thing that comes the most natural to you? I would say start there. And then once you get that ball in the air and you're juggling it consistently and you got that unlocked, then you can start your next thing. But don't start 5 different things at once, because you're going to spread yourself too thin. You're going to be overwhelmed, and then you're not going to accomplish anything. And also think about your reputation. There are some people who they do a million different things, and I just don't know what exactly they do, what they're known for. What is your expertise? Like, it's just, it's giving me weird vibes, like you just do too much. What do you want to be known for? When someone hears your name, Pauleanna Reid, they associate that with excellence. They associate that with sophistication, sometimes a little bit of ghetto, but they know that it's going to be quality. They know that it's going to be my best effort. You know what I mean? Like, there's certain things that come. So I think it's just really important. Just think about the chills that we get when we hear Michelle Obama, when we think of Ava DuVernay, Issa Rae, when we think of Oprah Winfrey, right? Like, we know the excellence that they bring to the table. So how do you want to be viewed, right? Like, so I think that's really important. So you don't want to be known as a chick who does a million different things and never completes anything and doesn't know, and here's the other thing too. It's very easy to look like you got it all together on social media. But if you were to step in the ring with me, or you, Carlette, right? If you were to step to the ring, if you were to sit at the table and you really have to show and prove, you might have an issue. Because, you know what I mean? So, like, there's a lot of people who look like they got it together on social media, but when they really have to articulate themselves, when they really have to deliver information and explain certain things, they can't. So just like focus on being really, really good at one thing at a time. One thing at a time. It doesn't mean you can't do all things. I'm just saying slow it down and focus on one thing at a time.
Wow, so good. I challenge everybody right now, if you have a sheet of paper, which you should, write down what's the one thing you're going to be consistent with this week, right? Going into tomorrow to practice these muscles. Because like she said, it's a muscle that you have to develop. So I think that's absolutely perfect. I love that. How about, high low days in business, right, Pauleanna? So one of the questions that came through was, how do you handle when things aren't going so great? Business has high and low days. How do you handle the low days? How do you push through your low days?
I don't like, I saw this question come in. Like, I don't even really know how to answer that question because it's like, it's kind of expected. If you're a business owner, like you're probably going to cry once a week, like,
or every other day.
Right. Like, like how do you know? What I mean? So I don't really know how to answer this question. You kind of just like do it because you understand where you started. You understand where you're going. You understand who you are. You understand that you should not lean on your own strength, right? You understand that, God is the source, and that's it, period. Like every day is not, there are going to be days when clients piss you off. There are going to be days where you cannot fulfill the order. There are going to be days when your accountant, whatever, like honestly, there's something that happens every single day, like every single day. You just kind of roll with it. And that's the thing, like your bounce back game got to be strong. Allow yourself to cry for 5 minutes. Then you got to be gangster. Like, you know what I mean? If you want to stay in business, that's, you know what I mean? Like, it's like, yes, I probably cry about once a week and I'm totally cool with that and whatever. But like, I pull myself together after I take a good nap, eat a good comfort meal, and then you just move on. You move the fuck on. Like, you know what I mean? Like, we're strong women. I don't need to tell you guys that. You guys know how strong you are. You feel me? Like, you got to just talk yourself into it, even when your voice shakes, even when you're nervous, even when you don't have the confidence, even when your bank account is in the red. You talk yourself into it and you move the fuck on. You take one step forward. And the only way I know how to climb out of any hole is gradually. That's it. That is it. There's no magic formula. There's no secret potion. Move the fuck on.
It doesn't get any more real than that. Okay. Hashtag cool combos. Hello. Can I see some CCs in the chat? Because it doesn't get any more real than that. Like, how many times have we like been in classes or webinars, etc., and they're telling you this magic formula that doesn't exist? Pauleanna literally just gave the formula. You just move on. You move on. You get 2 seconds to cry and you just move on. I love that. Okay, let's talk about boundaries. Okay, the big B word, the word that most people talk about, but then they're not really good at exercising these things.
Yeah.
So how do you set boundaries with your close friends and family? What does that look like for Pauleanna?
So like in the beginning, a question that I get a lot is around like parents or loved ones not really believing in you, like not getting that foundational support. And like, I think you just have to level your expectations. Some people are just not even capable of giving you that support. Some people are operating from a place of self-doubt and insecurity, and they're just not capable of doing that. So I think that's the first thing. The second thing is like, you really got to get into the habit of motivating your damn self, right? You can't just rely on friends and family to sing your praises and clap when you win. Like, honestly, it's nice to have, but most people don't have that. So like, you have to find it within yourself. You got to tap inside a space within yourself where nothing is impossible. And the other thing is like boundaries. To change their mind, you have to change their reality. That's what I'll say. Right. So what I mean by that is like my parents, I hate to single them out all the time, but like my family members, they weren't necessarily on board for me becoming a writer, right? Writing is not sexy. People don't really understand it. They don't really know how a creative would make money from it. But when I got to a point where I could put a couple stacks in their bank account, where I could handle some shit, handle some bills, you feel me? Well, you know what I mean? Like, who could say anything? So like, to change their mind, you have to change the reality. That's all. Just be really good at what you do. And like, just make excellence the bare minimum. Like, that's it. Like, people will always talk shit about you. Oh, you can save the world, planet Earth. They'll say, why didn't you save Mars and Pluto? Like, it doesn't matter how good you are, how kind you are, how polite, like, it doesn't matter. People will always hate on you for some bullshit. Like, you got to hype yourself up, talk yourself into it, be your own motivation, and just show people through the life that you live That is your billboard. That's it, period. Like, nobody in my family, I was once the black sheep, still kind of am, but a lot of people, like, cannot step to me because of my results. Put numbers on the board, put numbers on the scoreboard, and no one can say shit to you.
Girl, I gotta tell you, I'm looking at the chat, and everybody's head is like, we all bobbleheads in here. Everybody's literally a bobblehead tonight. We're like, yup. Results. It's the result. And the common theme of everything that you said over the last hour is excellence, right? Operating in true excellence. Incredible. If you guys don't walk away from this conversation with anything, let that be it, right?
Right.
Put your shoulders up, okay? Because we operating in excellence in all areas of
and
our
it's
life.
it's not easy by any means, right? The people who love you the most are probably going to support you the least. However, it's just a matter of, like, just everything has to just be in perspective. You can't just, like, that's just not how the world works. And especially if you're in the world of business, no one's here to hold your hand or kiss your forehead. Like, you got to figure this shit out on your own. So, and also too, stop asking people who have no experience, stop asking them what you should do. Like, my mom has never operated a business. I would never ask her for entrepreneurial advice. You feel me? Like, just know where you're getting your resources and your source and your energy from.
Yeah, perfect.
And then you won't be as stressed out.
Mm-hmm. Judge them by their fruit. If they don't have results, they can't feed into my life. You got to judge them by their fruit, right? So the next question that came through was, what's the most unexpected lesson that you've learned in the last year, in the middle of a pandemic, and how have you adapted?
It's around leadership for sure. So I was an executive assistant for 10 years before I quit. And I come from a long history of monster bosses. And so I had to check myself because I had to change my leadership style in the last year because of everything that was going on in the world and the sensitivity of the projects that we handled. I had to soften up, and I had to do more listening, and I had to shut up, and I really had to be a more compassionate leader. So that was probably the most unexpected lesson because it kind of hit us all hard. Anyone who was a founder, CEO, anyone who's in a leadership role, you had to deal with your team differently. You had to relearn, unlearn, reshape the way you thought. So yeah. I want to see if we have any questions from we spoke about a lot today, and we're going to wrap up in a little bit, in probably about 10 minutes. I want to get some questions from the audience and see if there's any, okay, so we can do this. If there's anything that stuck with you, right, that you wrote down and highlighted that was super important that we discussed today, or if you had a follow-up question from anything that was mentioned. And you can either press the hand sign or unmute your mic, or just type in the chat.
I mean, literally, there was so much. I better see some hands going off because I will.
Y'all are so quiet.
I will select you because we operate in excellence. Rashida, let's go.
Hi, everyone. Hi, Pauleanna. Okay, so the question I had to ask for you, actually, I'm not sure if you got to it yet, but I may have missed it. I was a little late. My bad. I want to know, how do you continue to remain focused on growing and evolving yourself in the midst of being tied to your business? How do you keep yourself tapped in? You know what I mean? So that way you're always operating from excellence, because the world is sometimes a dumpster fire. So how do you make sure that you're always tapped in, so that way that also trickles into your business and the rest of your life?
Okay, so number one, I think the conversations that you have with yourself determine whether you win or lose, right? I know that my mornings are sacred. So oftentimes I refer to the environment that I work in as the matrix, right? I work in entertainment, communications. It's a lot sometimes. It can be very stressful. And so I have to remember that I'm in the world, I'm not of the world. I have to remember that this is my path and this is my life assignment. And I understand the mission and what I need to do. Do you understand? There are jobs, I said this earlier, there are jobs and there are life assignments. And so I keep my life assignment at the forefront. I help people see beyond the limits of their circumstances, my bad, right? It's not just about me being a speaker or a mentor or an author or a journalist. Pauleanna is none of those things. Those things are vessels that I use to exercise my purpose, right? I think it's really important to understand, like, society is so obsessed. We're so obsessed with titles. You really have to understand who you are beyond them, right? And the other thing is, I think the pandemic forced a lot of people to have those tough conversations with themselves. And when you have to hold a mirror up, it can be very scary. So that's why people avoid it. And then they live in this abyss of materialistic bullshit and social media and smoke and mirrors, right? I'm okay with having those tough conversations. And so I spend a lot of time alone. And I just think it's important. I think a lot of people are just scared of that alone time. That's why they just surround themselves with things and people and events and all these things. But I really love spending time alone. I think that's really important. And I start my day alone. Thank you for your question.
So good. Let's go with Stephanie J and then Tanisha W.
Hi guys. It's been incredible last hour. I had a question for Vanessa. I think you were saying you're making some comparison to the corporate world in terms of, I think, newsletters and what they do. Can you explain it? I think I missed it.
Yeah, so I was just saying that there's parallels. Like, so my background is in business to business, email marketing largely, but like digital marketing in general. And even though it's like one business trying to sell to other businesses for the most part, whether it's like corporate services or like tech platforms, the goal of like newsletters and often like email marketing in general is the same. It's building trust over time, generating a sense of community, helping serve your target customer, with the goal of, in the long run, being able to sell them in a more genuine, kind of softer way. Because I think like a lot of people, Pauleanna touched on this, like, you know, there's email journeys that you can go on and click funnels where you're kind of setting up the sell from the very beginning. And that's really great and very efficient for a lot of people and super scalable. But ultimately, if people don't trust your brand or understand who you are or what value you provide to them, and in the business world, it's often like helping them understand their problems in a bigger way. Like, okay, I know that this task, for example, annoys you, but do you also know that it affects your bottom line? Do you also know that your employees are being less productive because of it? Like, you know, kind of really drilling down on like the problem and all that it means for them, and then being like, by the way, we can solve it, is kind of the goal overall.
Selling is never about actually selling, right? It's a conversation. I think people are just so obsessed with like, here's the product, here's the service, like in a sparkly package. It's like, yo, like, can we just chill? Can we have a conversation? Can we like just relax, right? Like make someone feel confident and comfortable, you know, and deliver on your promise. Like I have a whole 2-hour presentation on selling alone, because I'm really good at it. But selling is not about just coming out the gate. Like people need to vibe with you. Like, yeah, people need to just vibe with you. And I promise, like, everything will work itself out.
Mm-hmm. And not only that, like, there's always more to learn about your customer. Like, always. So that's another thing that like newsletters and being consistent opens up, is like a flow of communication for people. You'd be shocked at how many responses come from newsletters. Like, I don't know how many people have ever done that or thought to like literally hit reply on a newsletter, but you'd be shocked at the amount of people that do, saying like, thanks for sending this, whatever. But it's like, you really do learn a little bit more about your customer on a deeper level. And then you can understand how to like articulate their problem more, or learn how to solve their problems better. If anybody's like starting out in business, I've gone through this in the last like 2 years, since founding my company. Like we've pivoted quite a few times, like pretty drastically, because we've learned like the thing that we thought that we were offering that was this great solution was only a problem to a handful of people. And then as we grew, we just learned that we could serve people better in a different way. So just keep that in mind, like stay curious more than anything about how you can solve problems and who that customer is.
And continue to refine your customer experience.
Yes.
I think that's another big thing too that people totally overlook.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, we can talk about that till we're blue in the face, but I will say this. A reference is Joey Coleman. If you type in Joey Coleman 100K into YouTube, he is, when it comes to customer experience, like mind-blowing content. And again, small things move the needle. So like, I mean, everyone can achieve it.
And when you're starting out, like in a startup, anybody who's like entrepreneurial, talking about like focusing on 5 things at once, it's really hard to like grow a business and do sales and do marketing. But like at the end of the day, the customer experience is the brand experience. So that is your sales and marketing right there. Like focus on that first. That's like the highest priority, because those customers, if they have a good experience, they're going to come back. They're going to tell their other friends, which is like the cheapest marketing that you could ever do. So.
Such a great question. So we're gonna wrap up, you guys.
We can answer the three hands. We can wrap up with 3 hands.
Yep. So Tanisha, you're up first, then Nicole, then Phoebe. All right. Take it away, Tanisha.
Hey ladies, I feel like it's been so long since I've talked to y'all. I wanted to kind of go back to where Pauleanna, you talked about if you're not interested, you're not interesting. Or you're not interesting if you're interested, if you're not interesting if you're not interested. Because I feel like I know a lot of people talk about this, like they feel like they're different people. They're a different person when they're around different people. And sometimes it's kind of like, like I'm not the same with men that I am with my boss, but then when it comes to my close friends and then work, it's like I'm just different. And sometimes I feel like I don't know who I am at the core, because I feel like a lot of us know, for those of us who haven't reached where we want to be yet, that's sometimes where the blockage comes from, because it's like, well, I'm trying to break away from, let's say, corporate and do my own thing. But because I'm not successful doing my own thing, do I really have an identity yet? So I'm trying to figure out, I don't know, how do you really, like, what personal work do you feel needs to be done to kind of take those different personalities that you have with different people and cultivate it into one consistent person?
So here's the thing with me, right? Like, I'm not 500 different people. I'm not 500 different personalities with different people. Like, I've always been consistent across the board. Like in my corporate world, you're getting Pauleanna, right? In church, you're getting Pauleanna. To my parents, I'm very consistent, and I think it's very important. Like, I don't do the switch up. Whereas I feel like some people maybe feel pressure to do so, depending on who you're speaking to. But like, I'm just very consistent with who I am, because that's very important to me to keep that at the forefront of everything that I do. So I'm not getting overwhelmed. So I'm not getting lost. So I'm not feeling like I'm losing myself and losing my identity. So when you say personal work, I mean, like, it's hard for me to answer because I don't really do a switch up. Maybe Carlette or Vanessa can answer this better, but I definitely think whether you have great mental health or whether you are struggling, you should always be seeing a therapist or a life coach, or you should be talking to someone with an unbiased opinion. And then I honestly just give yourself grace. Like, I just feel like we are so complex, and that's not a bad thing. We're layered. And so, like, I don't know, I just never feel like if you're getting me, you're getting all of me and all of my layers. When I was in the corporate world, I was not taking a job unless they truly understood the different sides of me and all the shit that I do outside of work and the passion projects that are important to me. Like, we're not in alignment if I have to continue switching myself depending on the environment and the people that I'm speaking to. I don't know if Vanessa or Carla want to speak to that.
Yeah, I can jump in really fast. Tanisha, so for me personally, I think that goes back to boundaries for me. I allow people to see different pieces of me depending on the relationship, right? So like what I'm going to do with Pauleanna and you in a room, I'm not necessarily going to do with a client in a room. And that's just a boundary. I don't have to do the switch up, but I think it's just boundaries and understanding who, what, when, where, and why, right? I can listen to the Migos in the office and out the office because that's who I am. And I think to what Pauleanna said is just understanding what's in alignment with whatever it is that you're doing. So maybe spend some time and think about that. Like, who do you want to present yourself as? Who do you want to be known for? And what do you want people to know you as? So that's my response to that. I don't know if Vanessa wants to add
For the sake of time, we got to get to the last two questions. But thank you for your question, Tanisha. I think that is something that people struggle with, but I want to encourage people to like remain consistent in who they are and the principles they stand on, the non-negotiables and the boundaries that they have, and just be who you are in most environments. When I tell you, like, again, going back to titles and the people that that are in my orbit, I'm consistent. I'm not turning anything on or off. Like, I'm really who I am because I don't know how else to be anything or anyone else.
Got it. Thank you.
Cool. Okay. For the sake of time, Nicole and Phoebe, what is your question, please?
My question's quick. What is your approach when you're mentoring new people for New Girl on the Block?
What is my approach? What do you mean by that?
Like what, like I guess, how do you do your mentorship style is a better word.
I mean, Carla and Vanessa can tell you. I'll let them talk.
I'll just say 2 seconds is be ready, right? Be ready, put your ego to the side and show up as your full self and be ready to learn, be open to learning and taking the feedback. This is how she is in real life, like even more so critical as she gets to learn who you are, but just be ready for it and leave your ego at the door.
Yeah, and be really like, it's really helpful to get the most out of your time, to just be clear on what you're asking or what you need, like want to find out by the end of whatever session you have. That's really helpful as well.
Yeah. And the last thing I will say to contribute to this is like, I match your energy, right? Vanessa, I mean, we're now friends and sisters, but like she started my mentorship program maybe 3 years ago ish. And, me and Vanessa have traveled together. We're like homies. Like, I love her. If she asks me for anything, I will give it to her. But it's because I've seen her consistency over time and I've seen her growth over time. She listens, she executes, and that's it. Does that answer your question? Awesome. Okay, Phoebe, last but not least, what's up?
Okay, so quick question for you. When was the point in your career so far that you have turned down projects? I know a lot of people always want to take on more projects because they want to get their name out there.
Yeah.
But what was the point for you when you were just like, I'm either burnt out or it's, no. I know that you posted this about a while ago, how it's important for you to actually say no, and no means no. And then you have clients that email you after you've given your final word. Do you find that some people just do not accept the word no from you? And how have you pivoted and taken a bigger stance on that, turning down?
What I will do is when I say no, I will refer another sister agency.
Okay.
So I won't always say no and leave them hanging. I have several other friends that are in the same orbit, and I'll try to refer them to someone else because honestly, sometimes we're just not in alignment. If it's not a hell yes for me, the answer is no. If I'm not excited, don't want to do it. Like, I'm at a point in my career where I can pick and choose who I want to work with. And my clients, I consider them as partners, right? And this is going to be hopefully a lifelong partnership. And so if I'm not excited about you, if we just don't jam, we don't vibe, then, I'm okay with giving up the business. Sometimes I've been in situations where I fired myself, right? Because the person just does not respect my boundaries and it's just not good for my mental health. And my peace is very important to me. I hope that answers your question. And I love you and I miss you, girl. All right,
you guys, this was so amazing. If we can just take 1 second and give Pauleanna a round of applause. Vanessa, shout out to you. Ladies, it's amazing. I have a call to action for all of you. I would love it if you guys can run to social and tell them how amazing this cool conversation was.
And tag
also
me.
Tag her and share what was your biggest takeaway with your audience. And I challenge you ladies, this week for the rest of the week. Put your shoulders back. Remember,
my challenge to you, the biggest thank you that you guys can give me is to show me receipts. Right. I love when people show up in my DMs and they screenshot and they tell me like months later, a week later, how they implemented my advice and the result that they had.
That's right.
Awesome. All right. Love you. Thank you so much, ladies. Bye.